Hi everyone, I have something really important that I want to point out, and I just realized this morning that this connects directly with the constellation Taurus. I was going to talk a little bit more about the constellation Taurus and how it relates to the golden calf. I wanted to share some information about dates. And as I was looking at these images and pulling these tabs up, I noticed this video that came up in my subscriptions by Steve Fletcher, where he's talking about Obama being in Berlin on Ascension Day, and of course this is where we have the altar of Pergamum. It's kept in a museum in Berlin. You can see it right here, and this is where Hitler went to make speeches, or at least one speech, and this is also where Obama went even before he became president. He campaigned in Berlin and has been there several times, and of course he designed the stadium in Colorado, the Denver Stadium, to look like the altar of Pergamum. And in fact, I believe he even tried to get the actual altar placed there, but when they couldn't do that, they just decided to make a replica of the altar. And as you can see, it looks almost exactly, you can see it overlaid here, one on top of the other, so it's an exact replica of the altar of Zeus. And the reason I wanted to point this out is because there are some very important parallels. When Moses went up the mountain for 40 days on Mount Sinai to receive the 10 Commandments, when he came back down 10 days later on Pentecost, he found the people had made a golden calf. And I want to talk a little bit more about this image of the golden calf. As you can see in the movie The 10 Commandments, they used this image of a statue with the sun between the two horns of Taurus, and that's what I originally wanted to talk about. I wanted to show you when that's going to take place according to the online planetarium. I have some information that I wanted to share about that, but that's when I noticed Steve Fletcher's video over here, and I realized that this is an exact parallel, because this is exactly 40 days later from Pentecost that Obama is going to visit the altar of Pergamum. And I've talked about how in the constellation Taurus you have this cluster of stars known as the Pleiades, which directly relates with the seven churches. And of course, one of the seven churches is the church of Pergamum. You can see this other image over here that shows a direct correlation between the stars in Pleiades and the seven churches. And you see Pergamus mentioned right here, or indicated right here on this chart, and you see how there's a direct relationship with the seven main stars in the cluster known as the Pleiades. Of course, there's more than 7 stars. It's not exactly 7, but there's usually 7 that are visible to the naked eye when you look at this cluster. I also wanted to remind everyone of this table that I had done on the Second Advent. You can see here it reads Second Advent, Beast, Obama, Satan, Enter, Cast Out, as in cast out Satan, Enter, Obama, and you see the word enter over here going through the word beast, enter the beast, and the word beast is right on top of the name Obama, almost like a label, labeling who the beast is. And then you see the word Satan over here in the blue, and then cast going right through the word Satan, And then over here you have Second Advent, and of course you have first right here. There was a first and there will be a Second Advent. And you also have two dates mentioned over here. You have the first month, the first day of the month, and then you have the second month on the 27th and 20th day of the month. And as I've mentioned before, this second date here is actually Ascension Day. As you can see here, Ascension Day is Thursday, May 25th, but when you look at the Hebrew calendar, you see that that's the day just after Jerusalem Day, which of course is the day that Jerusalem became 50 years old after the Six-Day War, which on our calendar was June 7th, which I want to talk about this date a little bit more, but on the Hebrew calendar it was ER 28, which is the 28th day of the second month, but of course it starts sunset the day before, which would be the 27th day of the second month. And that's the day that you see here on this table. But I wanted to point out the fact that when Moses came down from the mountain and they had made the golden calf, as you can see, many of these images depict the golden calf as having a sun between the two horns. And so it's very likely that this is what was going on up in the heavens at the time that this image was made. I also pulled up this article on Apis, the bull god, because I wanted to try to understand what the significance is of having the sun between the two horns. And in this article it states that the sun disk between the horns represents divinity. And so this article goes on to show these images that have been found of idols depicting the bull with the sun disk between the two horns. It looks like over here that the disc was broken off of this one, but most of these show the sun. Again, this one looks like it's been broken off, but most of these show the sun between the two horns of the bull. And so I wanted to show you when that will take place based on this website over here. It's an online planetarium. I really don't know how to use Stellarium, but this website is really easy to use, and so I just use this one over here. But as you can see, this is the constellation Taurus. You can see the two horns over here. You can see the Alpha star, which is Aldebaran, right here. And as you can see, the sun is just entering Taurus, which is another thing that I wanted to mention because I didn't mention that in the first video or in my last video on the constellation Taurus. But as you can see from this article in Wikipedia, the sun is in the constellation Taurus from May 13 through June 21st. Of course, in astrology they have some different dates for the constellation Taurus, but the sun actually appears in the constellation from May 13 through June 21st, and that corresponds with what's showing up here in this online planetarium. And so I wanted to show you when the sun will actually be between the two horns of Taurus. And if you just go forward with the dates, you can see when that will take place. And so I just wanted to quickly show that to you. And it's right about June 7th or 8th when you see that happen. So I'll go back to June 7th, and you see that that's about when the sun is in between the two horns. It's actually more centered on the 8th, June 8th. So you can see that right here. Okay, so I'm not sure if that's significant or not, but as you can see, they did depict the calf with sun between the horns when they made this golden calf. At least that's how it was believed to have been depicted according to the movie The 10 Commandments. And it was 40 days that Moses had gone up the mountain to receive the 10 Commandments, and then when he came back down, this is what he found. And so he broke the 10 Commandments, and then he went back up the mountain for 40 days. And I pulled up this article over here that says, why did Moses go up Mount Sinai twice? And in this article it says that it was a common practice in ancient times in the Middle East that the agreements were made twice. There was first a preliminary agreement that would be made on parchment paper or on small tablets the first time, and then once everyone agreed to the agreement, there would be a second agreement that would be made on larger tablets that would be the one that was binding. And according to this article, this practice continues to this day. And so that may be why the 10 Commandments had to be given twice. And so I just wanted to point that out, because it may be that we will be given another 40 days, because when you look at the parallels, you can see that it's after 40 days that Obama goes to the altar of Pergamum in Berlin, and this corresponds with Ascension days, which is 40 days from first fruits. But then 10 days later is Pentecost, and this is where the sun will be on Pentecost. It's just going into the two horns. It's almost in between them, but not quite, by Pentecost. And then it was on June 7th that Jerusalem was retaken on our calendar, and so that would correspond with the 13th of Sivan. That would be right here. So we're looking at, a few days later from Jerusalem Day. So we don't know if anything's going to happen with this visit to Berlin. This will be the 40 days that Moses went up the mountain. Of course, that corresponds with the 40 days when Jesus ascended into heaven. And then, of course, 10 days later was Pentecost, when the Holy Spirit was given. But in the case of when Moses went up the mountain, when he came back down, he saw this. And so instead of receiving the Holy Spirit, 3,000 people were destroyed on that day, and then they were given another 40 days that Moses went back up on the mountain and then came back down 10 days later, apparently, which would take us to Second Pentecost. Because there's two ways to interpret the counting of the Omer. One way is to count the 7 Sabbaths complete, and then the morrow after the Sabbath would be Pentecost. But then in verse 16, it seems like it's saying to count another 50 days, which would make it a total of 99 days. And then the two wave loaves are presented in verse 17. So again, you have the verse 17 with the waving of the first fruits. So there's the number 17 again. But if you add the 99 days to April 16th, that brings you to July 24th, 2017. And so we don't know if in God's mercy He's going to give us another 40 days, or if this will be the day, the cutoff day, Ascension Day, the 27th. And so I just wanted to share that for now, but I'll continue with more in the next video. Thank you.